Hello, and welcome to BCEN and today's webinar, 5 Simple Steps to Recertify by CE, presented by Janie Schumaker, CEO at BCEN. I'm Holly Briggs, your host for today's webinar. Thank you everyone for attending. We're very excited that you could join us today. You may have noticed that you are on mute, but you still have an opportunity to ask questions. If you should have any questions, please use the Q&A section during the webinar and not the text chat, as questions could get lost in the chat section. This webinar is being recorded and will be available in a week on BCEN's website. We hope that you have heard about BCEN Learn, but in case you haven't, it's our newly updated online learning platform. Our BCEN Learn courses are designed by subject matter experts. They are interactive, engaging, and offering continuing education credits. Practice exams are only $40 and can be found in the practice exam section of BCEN Learn. Also, check out BCEN and Friends podcast series. There's a new podcast every other Tuesday, and you can listen to them on your PC or portable device. Here's a sample of some of our new courses we have on BCEN Learn, which are available right now. One of them is called Peeking Below the Surface, Understanding Hemodynamics. We also have a cardiogenic shock course, which is complete with case studies. So you should go ahead and jump on, check out some of those courses. Course bundles are back. It's got updated courses and content. You can check them out on BCEN Learn as well. We have a cardiac course bundle, professional development course bundles, and several others. Again, lots to check out on BCEN Learn. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to our CEO at BCEN, Janie Schumaker. Janie is a nurse leader with nearly 30 years of experience, ranging from the bedside to administrative roles. In January of 2021, Janie became the CEO at BCEN, having spent many years as the executive director and in volunteer positions within BCEN. She holds her CEN certification and 2 other nursing certifications. It's quite clear that Janie believes in the value of obtaining and maintaining certification, and she is here today to walk us through the process of recertifying by CE with BCEN. Janie, it's great to be with you today.
Oh, thank you, Holly. It is great to be here. And you're right. I am really, really passionate about specialty nursing certification. So I'm very pleased to be able to share our 5 simple steps to recertify by CE. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I want to take this opportunity before we get started just to tell each of you listening that you do make a difference every day. And thank you. Thank you for the important work that you do every day. We appreciate you. And you are so valuable. And thank you for being certified or considering being certified if you're listening to this webinar, because we know that makes a huge difference in patient care. And we'll talk just a little bit about why that is. We'd be missing an opportunity if we didn't. Okay, whoops. So you've already heard about me, so we don't need to cover any more about that. Today, we are going to talk about 5 simple steps to recertify by CE attestation. There are 2 ways to recertify. CE attestation is by far the most popular one. The second option is to take the exam again, which many people choose not to do. And recertifying by CE attestation is actually quite simple. And if the more proactive you can be during your 4-year cycle, the simpler it is. And we'll talk more about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of certification, as I said. And I also want to help you understand the why behind some of our certification requirements. We'll review and demonstrate our CE tracker. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is and why that's important. And then we'll talk a little bit about the audit process. We do have about 10% of those who recertify by CE attestation who do undergo audit. And so we'll talk about that, and then we'll let you have an opportunity to ask questions. So a little bit about BCEN. We are an independent, not-for-profit organization. We develop and deliver robust certification programs for emergency, trauma, transport, pediatric emergency, trauma nurses, and then we do have a new burn certification that is launching this fall. So we're very excited about that. Our certifications are accredited by the American Board of Nursing, Specialty Nursing Certification. And because we're accredited, that is also one of the reasons for the rigor behind our requirements. And we also provide emergency nurses and nurses across the emergency spectrum in trauma, flight, ground transport, and now burn, the opportunity to earn continuing education with us through our learning platform, which is called BCEN Learn. And just to clarify, when I said we're independent, sometimes people reach out to one of the membership associations like the Society of Trauma Nurses or the Emergency Nurses Association, thinking that we are part of one of those organizations. And so if you reach out to get help with something about your certification there, sometimes you don't get a great response because we are not part of those organizations. We are our own organization. So just wanted to clarify that because sometimes people are reaching out to the wrong organization. So certification and lifelong learning are definitely our passion here at BCEN. We have nurses on our team that all hold certifications, and we believe deeply in this. And I have been a volunteer with BCEN since 2003 and have loved the opportunity to do the incredible work that we do. And now being able to be a staff person in the organization is incredible. So it allows me an opportunity to talk about specialty certification, how important it is, and encourage people to become certified. And we really like this quote from a couple of really high-performing nurses, Stuckey and Weimer. And they say specialty certification is an objective measure which assures the public that the nurses demonstrate the highest level of professional achievement in their field. And this is obtaining specialty nursing certification is the highest credential that a nurse can achieve. So it's very admirable. Incremental changes that increase professionalism and promote optimal outcomes could influence substantial and lasting changes in the U.S. healthcare system. So think if all nurses studied for certification, became certified, and then continued that lifelong learning process to maintain their certification status and the knowledge required to hold the credential. Some amazing things can happen in patient care and teamwork and the resources those nurses become and the role models they become for others. We know certification matters because it does help nurses gain additional knowledge just from preparing for the examination and the learning that needs to take place when you are going to recertify your credential. And I personally have had several experiences with patients that had I not been studying for my certification exam, I would have missed something, and it helped me be more knowledgeable about what I was seeing with the patient in front of me. So I know firsthand that this first statement is absolutely true. It also allows nurses to handle challenging patients with greater confidence, detect and mitigate potential complications. Any good nurse is always going to be thinking, okay, I've got my patient in front of me. What are the things that could potentially be complications for this patient? And how do I watch for those and head those off at the pass? Certification requires a commitment to lifelong learning. It's so true. And specialty certification raises the bar for the nursing profession. So nurses are just seen as consummate professionals and the go-to person when they achieve specialty nursing certification. And it opens a lot of doors and opportunities as well. BCEN, our CEN is our oldest credential. It's been around since 1980. There are just under 60,000 certifications that are held by nurses across these certifications, these 5. The burn certification will launch this fall, so we're very excited to welcome the burn nurses into our family. And you can see here on this slide how many people hold each credential currently. So we're very proud of this, and we'd like to see this number continue to grow. So let's talk about some recertification facts now, the topic you all came to hear. Our recertification cycle is every 4 years. That's pretty standard in the nursing certification industry. You may see there is one organization that does an annual cycle, but most organizations have a cycle between 3 and 5 years. So ours is 4. Each cycle, certified nurses pursue professional development and continuing education meant to maintain and also elevate the knowledge that you would have had to pass the exam in the first place. So that's That's why we want to see these 100 contact hours if you're recertifying by CE attestation, because we want you to not only maintain the knowledge you had when you passed the exam, we want you to elevate that knowledge and always be pursuing more knowledge, learning about things you're not as sure about so that you can take excellent care of those patients in your charge. Ongoing planning and preparation during that 4-year cycle will really ensure that recertification goes smoothly. Being proactive is key here, and we'll talk more about that. We do provide a CE tracker in your account. So part of being proactive is you can, as you go along, year 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can add your CEs to that tracker as you get them. That is the best practice, and I'll show you how to do that. And then when you go to recertify, if you do get audited, you're set. So that is one really best practice to work on, is to keep that CE tracker current, add things to it as you earn them. And we have a lot of professional development activities on BCEN Learn, and anything that you achieve at BCEN Learn, any CE that you earn automatically populates the tracker. And I'll show you a little bit more about that too here in just a minute. Some people say, well, what is CE attestation? And this is really important, because when you go in and fill out your application and say that you want to recertify by CE attestation, we are going to give you a message that says you attest to the fact that you have your 100 contact hours on the date that you are submitting your application. And you're going to say, yes, I do. Because if you don't say, yes, I do, then you can't recertify. So CE attestation means that you affirm that you've met the requirements for recertification, including those 100 CE contact hours, and you have an active unrestricted RN license at the time of applying. So if I come in and I go to renew by CE attestation, and I attest that I have all of my hours, and then I get audited and it turns out I only have 90 of those hours, my attestation renewal is going to fail, because you had to have your 100 contact hours earned by the date you made your application and during your 4-year recertification period. So let's go through the 5 simple steps now, and I'll show you how to get recertified. So the first is to check your eligibility, which is I have an unrestricted active RN license. Verify your CEs or your contact hours. You want to make sure before you attest in your application that you have them and make your payment, you want to make sure that you have the 100 hours. And if you've been proactive and kept your tracker current, you'll know. But if you haven't done that, you're going to want to make sure you have your 100 contact hours before you pay and submit your application, because once you pay and submit your application, if you don't have the hours, your recertification will be denied. Then you fill out your application. Once you verify your CEs, you make payment, step 4. And step 5 is you would complete your audit if you're one of the 10% that gets audited. And we have a lot of people recertifying. So there's a good number of people that do get audited. It is 10%. Now, we've put some things together recently to really try to help people understand how to do this recertification. And this webinar is one more tool that we hope will help people understand the process. This is a recertification checklist, and you can download this and you can interact with it. It's all the links in it are live. You can check things off as you accomplish them. And it's a really great tool just to help somebody walk through the process. It follows the same 5 simple steps that we're talking about right here. And I'll show you where to find this on our website in just a moment, but this is one tool that you can use and you can share with others to use that really walks you through how to recertify in 5 simple steps. The other thing that you want to make sure of is that your account information is always accurate. So is your phone number current? Because we do reminder calls. We'll have someone call you to remind you that your certification is about to expire. So if your phone number is not current, you won't get the reminder call. You want to make sure that the email that you have in your account is the one you intend for us to communicate with you. You will get email reminders. So you want to make sure your email is accurate. If you get audited, it's going to contact you by that email. And then make sure your address is current, because when you are successful at recertifying, we want to be able to send you your new certificate and wallet card. So let's go through the 5 steps. Step 1, check eligibility. Most of you, in fact, we don't have anybody usually having a problem with this one, but you want to make sure you're recertifying for the current BCEN certification that you hold. So, if you hold the CEN, that's the one you're recertifying. Sometimes people will accidentally get into a different certification. So make sure it's the one that you intend. And sometimes people hold more than one certification. So you want to make sure you've got the right one. Have a current unrestricted RN license or the equivalent. And the equivalent really gets involved when we have people that do not hold a U.S. nursing license, which is a different webinar. So we won't go too much into that. And be sure you've completed those 100 contact hours during your current 4-year recertification period. This is what your recertification period looks like. And I'm just going to hop over now to our website. So hopefully you can all see, this is bcen.org. This is our home page. I am going to go to my account login. This is how I get started when I want to recertify, or if I want to log some hours into my tracker. I logged into our account, and then this is our dashboard. And so what I was showing you is that I have the CEN certification, and in red there, it tells me when my expiration date is, which is 3/30 of 27. And when I'm ready to renew or recertify, I either choose by CE or by exam, but we're not ready to do that just yet. First, I want to go over and show you your 4-year cycle that we were looking at on that slide just a moment ago. So this, if I go over to BCEN Learn CE Tracker, I want to log or view my CE activities. And this is also what I'm going to do as I earn CE. I can come over here and log this anytime. And so this right here is my 4-year period. So why this 4-year period is important is because my CE has to be earned between 3/31 of 23 and 3/30 of 2027. So if I earn CE on February 28th of 2023, I cannot use it for this 4-year period. So it has to be within this 4-year window. If we come down and look, you can see I've started to work. I have 17.5 hours. I need 100 in 4 years. So right now I have 17.5, but I just recertified in March. So I'm working on this. And it tells me, 75 of those hours need to be clinical. And people oftentimes make that way too difficult. They say, oh my gosh, what counts for clinical? Well, if you're an emergency nurse and you hold the CEN, there are numerous clinical things that you can take that would count. We want new knowledge, so we're not going to allow BLS, for example. We will allow things like ACLS and PALS to be used once in the 4-year period, but we're really looking for you to go out and get knowledge above and beyond what your day-to-day is. And so, if there's something that you feel like, wow, I don't really feel as comfortable managing ventilators, which we do a lot of now in the emergency department. So I'm going to go take some courses on ventilator management. That counts as clinical. Anything that really has to do with patient care, any disease process that you see in the emergency department, which is pretty much all of them, counts as clinical. If you're renewing for trauma, then your clinical hours want to be focused on things that trauma patients are going to be concerned about. So traumatic injuries, the resuscitation period. Now the patient's moved to ICU, some things that might go on there with the patient, maybe some rehab, reintegration into society. So those are the kind of clinical things for a trauma patient, and it kind of follows form with flight and ground transport. Not everything that you do has to be related. If you're a flight nurse to, okay, it's got to be helicopter related. You're still taking care of patients with disease processes and equipment. And so those kinds of educational offerings that cover disease processes and equipment like ventilator management are still going to be applicable because you're still doing that patient care. So then 25 of those hours can be other things, like maybe you want to take some leadership development, you want to learn about process improvement, if you're taking a lean course, things like that can count into the other 25 that are sort of more your choice, don't have to be clinical. And then we say 50 of those hours need to be accredited, which means they need to come from an accredited source. So that means you got a certificate of completion and it's got a nursing provider organization and provider number on it. And I'm going to show you an example of that in just a moment. So I've got 17.5 hours here. Those have all come from BCEN Learn, by the way. So if we look on my BCEN Learn, here are the courses I've taken, which means I took continuing education in the form of a webinar or a practice exam or a course from BCEN Learn. And when I finished that course and completed my course evaluation, that automatically came over here and populated my tracker. So I don't have to do any more with that. But now I may want to add something that I didn't take from BCEN Learn. So I'm going to come back up here now to CE courses and activities. I clicked right here, CE courses and activities, because maybe I've taken a continuing education outside of BCEN Learn, and I do have to upload that. So if I want to add something, I just literally click on the add button. We've made this very simple. And we will take the continuing education contact hour. You can also use continuing medical education if you're participating in something with the physicians. We'll take those as well. I want to put my completion date. The completion date is not today when I'm uploading it. The completion date is when it actually happened, right? So, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say, I completed this one on the 4th of April, which is still within my 4-year cycle. Then it's going to give me some instructions here. We've already gone over these. Then it's going to ask you for the name of the activity. How many hours did you earn, which is what you'll find on the certificate you're uploading. Then it's going to say, is this clinical content? And the one I'm going to upload isn't. So I'm going to say no. And is this from an accredited source? So did it come from ANCC? Did it come from the California State Board of Nursing? Does it have a provider number? We'll look at one of those in just a minute. This one does. I'm going to say yes. So then I just literally choose my file. What do I want to upload here? I go out onto my computer and I find it. And if you don't have your file on your computer, you can take a picture of it with your phone and send it on to your computer. I have now uploaded my file. I'm going to save that in here. And then when I come back up to my activities, you can see now that I've added 8.5 hours for this ABNS conference. It is accredited, but it is not clinical. Okay, so then if we go back to my CE summary, you can see now that I've got 8.5 hours up here and 17.5 here. So I now have a total of 26 credits. And I have 17.5 of those, which are clinical, and the 8.5 I just added, which are not. And all 26 of mine are accredited. But again, you only have to have 50% accredited. And what accredited means is that I may have gone to a presentation on a new piece of equipment that the hospital is getting. It's really important for me to know how to use it. I spent an hour learning how to do it. I have a certificate of completion, but there's no nursing provider, continuing education provider on it. But it's still important that I did that education. So that's what we mean by non-accredited. It just doesn't have that nursing provider like ANCC or the California State Board of Nursing. There's no provider number on it for us to see. So let's go back over into our slides now and take a look at what we're talking about. So we looked at our 4-year period. So then step 2, we're going to confirm we've completed those 100 contact hours. Some people keep those in their computer in a file, but you're going to want to confirm that you have them. We talked about that 75 of those have to be clinical. I'm going to show you a tool here in just a moment that will help you figure that out. And 50 of them have to be from an accredited source. Now, why do we require 100 contact hours? We've kind of touched on this already. We talked about that it's really important that we want to make sure you maintain the knowledge you had when you passed the exam initially, but also elevate that knowledge. Working clinical hours alone is not sufficient because there are things that credential holders need to know that they may not be seeing in their day-to-day, or they may see very infrequently. So, if you're only seeing a AAA once every 5 years, that may be some content that you want to brush up on so that when you do see it, you know how to manage that and evaluate that. So working clinically alone is not sufficient to maintain and more importantly, elevate that knowledge base that you have. And specialty certification, as we said, it is the highest credential a nurse can hold, and it does require rigorous standards of continuing education to be met. Otherwise, the credential really doesn't mean much. So those are some whys behind these contact hours. And our accreditors certainly want to see that we have some rigorous standards in place, or else they won't accredit us. So here's the recertification requirements. When you're trying to figure out if you've got your 100 contact hours, what's going to count for the clinical, what comes from an accredited source, we've got this tool on our website that we put together to help people. We've got this algorithm. First of all, the content all has to be at the nursing level or higher. We won't accept any content that's not at the nursing level. So if you've taken some training with EMS, and you got a certificate of completion, I'm sure that training was great, but if it doesn't have a nursing provider level, then we can't accept it. And then is the content directly related to patient care in your specialty? If it is, then you can, yes, that's good news. You can use that. If it's not related to patient care, then perhaps it falls into the other 25 hours that you can claim. If it's accredited, I'm going to show you what that looks like here in just a moment. Great. It can go into the 50 hours bucket. And if it's not, then it'll go into the non-accredited bucket. And then some of the other types of things you can do to earn your 100 contact hours, we talked about continuing education courses. So the courses that you can take, there are hundreds of them for the content that you want to learn more about. We talked about BCEN Learn being a good source. We have well over 100 offerings in our catalog. And the good news there is that all of those, as I showed you, populate your tracker automatically once you complete the course evaluation. If you've done a presentation or a lecture, maybe you spoke at a conference or you presented to some nursing students, you can count those. Every 60 minutes counts as 1 contact hour. So if you're doing presentations or lectures, you want to take advantage of that. Academic credit, perhaps you've gone back to school to obtain a higher degree, so you can use some academic credit to help recertify your credential. If you precept a student nurse, you can use that as some contact hours. And if you are authoring, you've authored a journal article, you can submit that. And then if you done non-accredited types of CE that would fall into your 50 hours that are allowed for non-accredited would be presentations or lectures where CE was not provided to the attendees. Maybe you're the one that did that in service on the new piece of equipment. If you do a poster presentation where attendees who viewed your poster did not achieve CE, or item writing, maybe you're writing items for an exam, or maybe you're writing for one of our exams. you can use some hours there. So those are just some other options to obtain those 100 contact hours that sometimes people overlook. So I thought those were worth pointing out. Now, here's a certificate of completion from BCEN Learn. I attended our last conference in May in Dallas. And so I earned 14 contact hours. And then you can see down here where I've highlighted in yellow, it says provider approved by the California Board of Registered Nursing. And you can see there that we have a provider number for 14 contact hours. So that's when you know it's accredited, is that it's got a provider number and an organization that's issuing that provider number. All right, so then step 2, we're going to verify our CEs. We've looked into that tracker. We've talked about keeping that tracker up to date because it really makes it easy when you go to recertify, especially if you get audited. If you've never kept your tracker up to date, you don't have a single thing in there, and you recertify and you get audited now, then you've got to get your entire 100 contact hours loaded. We do give you 30 days to do it, but it can be a little daunting for people that go into audit. So the best practice, again, I'm going to say it 100 more times, keep your tracker current during your 4-year cycle. Put it in as you earn it. We know that the things on BCEN Learn automatically go into your tracker. And so we want to keep that current, keep it up to date as we're going. We also have a guide on our website on the recertification page that shows you how to use the BCEN tracker. It's a step-by-step guide. I just showed you a minute ago how to upload something that you've achieved onto your CE tracker. And this guide here will walk you through that very thing that we just looked at. So this is another tool that you can look at online, download, print off, however you like to do those things. But this guide is available. The third thing that you do once you've verified your CE, your 100 contact hours, is you're going to want to go into your account and you're going to want to apply for recertification. Okay, so now can we all see I'm in my account again?
Yes, Janie, we can.
Great. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard now. And if I want to recertify by CE, I'm just going to click that. And I am going to click that because that's what we're talking about. And that's going to pull up an application. So our application is actually pretty easy. We've worked really hard on it over the years to make it very simple for you. It's going to tell you what I've already said, that those 100 contact hours have to be present today. You have to have earned them all today, and they have to be within your 4-year period, even if you're recertifying early. So that's key. So if I want to recertify today, even though I'm not due till 2027, I can. It doesn't affect my certification date. It'll just push it out another 4 years. But I've got to have all 100 contact hours today. And if I don't, my application's going to fail. So it's going to go through that. It's going to talk about eligibility. We've already talked about that. It's going to talk about what you need for continuing education, those 100 hours. It's going to ask you for your license information, so you can just put that in. What state are you licensed in? And sometimes you're licensed in more than one, but, pick the one that you work in the most. When does your license expire? So you can go out and, I'm just putting in something random here, but you'll have your license so you can get the number off of it and your actual expiration date. If you're a member of a professional organization, ENA members do get a discount on the CEN and the CPIN. Society of Trauma Nurse members get a discount on the trauma certification. And then if you are an ASNA member, get a discount on the transport certifications, and ABA members will get discount for the burn. So you can select yes or no here. And then you'll want to put in your membership number here. And then we also have a military discount. So if you are past or current military, you can select yes, and you can take advantage of the military discount. And then it's going to ask you to acknowledge that your recertification is subject to audit, and failure to comply with or pass the audit will result in revocation of your credential. And the way to get your credential back, if that happens to you, is to retake the exam. You're going to attest that you've met eligibility and the CE requirements, that your CEs have been completed on or before the certification expiration date. Before you submit the application, I can't stress enough, make sure that is the case. I acknowledge this recertification application fee is non-refundable and it's non-transferable. So if I fail my audit, I don't get to transfer my fee to an exam that I'm going to retake to re-achieve my credential. And I certify to the best of my knowledge that the supplied information is true and accurate. So I'm being asked to check these, that I understand these things. I'm going to do that. I'm going to click next. And then I can continue. I've done all the things that's required for my application, and I can go to checkout and make my payment. If your organization supplies vouchers, you can pay with a voucher. Groups of nurses can buy vouchers for an additional savings. You can buy as few as 3, or you can pay with ACH or a credit or debit card. And I'm not going to go ahead and pay for this today because I don't have my contact hours. So I'm not going to do that today. But I wanted to show you the application process is actually really simple. So I wanted you to be able to see how that looks. All right, so we're going to go back to our PowerPoint. We've applied for our certification. We've made payment in theory. If we're ready, we want to be sure, right? I don't have my hours, so I'm not going to do it. We've talked a little bit about our voucher program in that we do offer exams at a discount if you buy as few as 3 or as many as you like. So sometimes nurses will get together in groups of 3, or people that hold more than 1 credential will buy a group of 3 vouchers. It is a nice savings. They are good for 12 months, and they can be used for any of our certifications to take the exam or to recertify. So they're very, very handy. And you can learn more about those on our website, or you can reach out to us. We'll be happy to tell you more. And then let's talk about the audit now, and then we'll look at one more thing on our website, and then we'll take questions. So I told you 10% of people are audited. That's random. Our system does that automatically. I promise you, we do not have a person sitting there saying, oh, I'm going to audit this person and this person. It's very random, totally random, based on numbers out of our system. And these audits, the why behind them is that they're necessary to ensure that nurses who attest that they actually have their CE really do. So that's required for us to be certain that we know people have the required contact hours so that they can maintain, but more importantly, elevate that knowledge base. And it's also required of us to be accredited. So that audit is absolutely necessary. It's important. It helps to give credit to the credential. And it's not anything that we can get around or do away with. A very important part of the process. Folks that are selected for audit, you're notified via email. So again, very important to keep that email up to date. Documentation must be submitted in that tracker that we've been looking at within 30 days of receiving your audit notification. And as luck would have it, we also have a handy tool here that you can also find on our recertification page on our website that walks you through step-by-step how to upload your CEs and be successful in your audit. So this is a really handy tool that we hope people are taking advantage of. And we also have a video that shows you how to do all of these things. If you're more of a person that likes to watch a video, we have a video that shows you how to be successful in your audit as well. And then I just want to mention briefly that, you know, when you recertify or one of your colleagues does, we have these really great free resources on our website. You can send someone a card, congratulate them, or maybe they just did something great that had nothing to do with certification, but they're just a really great nurse and they do a good job every day, or they did something really outstanding and you want to recognize them. We have lots of resources available to help you recognize your peers. So that's always important. Nurses don't get enough of that. So I wanted to just bring this to your attention. And then, if you've got some people that you try to convince, hey, or your leadership even, let's support certification. People need to be certified. We have, many, many more resources on our resources page. And these are some white papers that are very user-friendly and easy to read and have lots of great facts and ideas for how to create a culture around certification. So I wanted to point those out as well. And then let's go, we'll go back over just one more time quickly. I just want to show you our recertification page where you can find all of these things. And then, and hopefully you'll find this webinar and you can point more people to it because we are recording it today. So let's go back to our home page. Get out of my account here where we don't want to pay for our certification. We'll go back to our home page. And I go to Recertify, and I'm going to click Recertification. Also under this Recertify tab is a retired designation. So if anyone's retiring and you're really proud of your credential, which I hope you are and you should be, you can get a retired designation. It's a one-time fee of $75. So that's something to note if you are in the market to retire. Okay, so we're going to our Recertify page, and we've got some quick links here that tell us recertification by exam, by attestation. We've got some FAQs that you can look at, what the thing costs. So if you want to quickly get to any of these, but here are those checklists that I was talking about. If you're recertifying by attestation, as we've been talking about, here's where you download that. We've got some drop downs here that talk about eligibility, and guidelines for your contact hours. You can find out all those things that we just talked about as far as the 75 clinical. If you're certifying by exam, we help you with some of the same kinds of information here. There's a link to BCEN Learn if you need to quickly get over there. This is the guide or the area where you download the algorithm to figure out if your CE is going to count, and all of the other options there are to earn those 100 contact hours. So here's where you can download those handy materials right here. You can help others find them, give them to people, print them off, whatever you need to do so that we've got those there. And then if you do get audited, here's our audit section. Here's our step-by-step guide that I showed you a minute ago with the steps on how to be successful for the audit. And then here's where you find the video. And that video can also be found in your dashboard in your account. So those are just some things I wanted to point out on the recertification page itself. That brings us to the time if anybody has a question, but that is the 5 simple steps to recertification. So we'll open this up if anybody has a question. We'd love to hear it. And I think you're supposed to put that in the Q&A.
Janie, it just looked like we have one of the questions in the Q&A section. Tried to do a continuing education this year, but it says the CE hours will expire in a year. My CEN recertification is due in 2026. Can I still add it to my CE tracker, and will it count?
So if you earn CEs this year and you're in your 4-year cycle, this year counts as your 4-year cycle, which I'm assuming it does since you expire in 2026, then yes, you can add that to your tracker and it will count as long as it is related to your credential. So if you're a CEN, and it's got a clinical application to what you do, or it falls into that other 25, you can absolutely use it. If it's accredited with that provider number, it will count towards your accredited hours. And if it's not, then it would count toward your non-accredited hours. I don't see any other questions. Holly, do you?
I don't. So if you do have any questions, if you want to go ahead and drop them either in the chat or the Q&A section, we'd be happy to address them here. Janie, great job. I appreciated you showing us, going into the BCEN website, going into your tracker, and just kind of walking us through that step-by-step process and, breaking it down to where, recertification can seem very daunting when it comes up after 4 years, especially if it's not something you've been actively keeping up with, or, it's kind of been on like the back burner. You feel like you have a ton of time, but then just to see you kind of walk through it, show us exactly where everything's at, and just show us kind of like the different ins and outs of what counts, what doesn't count, and resources that we can use. So definitely appreciate you walking us through that. Glad to know you didn't click the button, because didn't look like, according to your tracker, you weren't ready yet. So
Wasn't ready yet. Yeah, no, I don't want to retake the exam right this minute. So, and I've had my CEN since like 1996. So I don't want to mess that up, but, thank you, Holly. It was really fun to show this. And I think people think it's complicated. It's really not. And it's really not complicated at all if you keep your tracker current, because where it gets complicated is when you go into audit. And if you have never put a single thing in that tracker, it's, that can be a little bit like, oh my gosh, now I've got 100 hours, I've got to get in there. So that's where it gets overwhelming for people. So, even if you just sit down once every 3 or 4 months and put your things in, that is just a great way to stay ahead of the game and and relieve all the stress that you could have if you get audited. So it's really pretty simple, and I was really happy to be here and be able to walk through it with people. So
Janie, it does look like we had a question come in. It's the question was, certified in multiple different certifications. Does my CEU count for all of the different certifications if it's during their renewal time?
Yeah. And Kelly, thank you for the question. And that's a great question. And the answer to that is yes. If you've got hours that overlap with some of your certifications, you can use them for each certification as long as it's within that 4-year window. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you, Janie, for presenting today. We appreciate you taking the time to walk through the steps to recertify by CE for our BCEN certifications. We know our certification holders have worked very hard to obtain certification, and we hope this webinar will help to pave the way to recertification when the time comes. This concludes today's webinar. We truly appreciate you taking the time to attend today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope to hear from you online again very soon. Goodbye, everyone, and thank you.